because you never know. It says we're live. Let's give a shot.
Great.
This moment always. Okay. Hold tight. It's coming up. Yes, we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, happy Tuesday. And welcome back for another episode. If not now, when? And today, guys, I am so beyond excited to introduce you today's special guest, Julia Wuench. And Julia has such a beautiful story, guys. She has such a big heart, big passion for social entrepreneurship and social impact. After doing MBA, Julia followed her path into management consulting because why not? Then 2 years later, she soon discovered the truth for herself, which led her to create the Authenticity Guide, and that inspired her to transition her career into a career coach. And today, she's also a keynote speaker, a contributor to the Forbes magazine. It's a fancy magazine, guys. She also be featured in the Business Insider. She has so much insight to share with all of us today. With that, I am so excited. Thank you so much, Julia, and welcome to the
show. Thank you so much for having me, Wen. Thank you for your beautiful enthusiasm. It is like medicine to me today on election day, which is a day that many of us have woken up very worried and anxious, but you have just sort of made me feel better. So thank you.
Oh, I'm so happy. So Julia, tell us, take us back to your journey. How does all the magic get started?
So I started my career in corporate finance in New York, which is where I'm from originally. And I started that career, by the way, after kind of finding my activist roots in undergrad. And so when I was in college, I worked with survivors of domestic violence, doing economic empowerment work for survivors. I was an advocate for low-wage workers' rights, particularly custodial workers. And I just sort of dabbled in a lot of different social impact areas, and I really loved them all.
How is that? You were so young. What does that inspire you to be into such a heavy topic? Like, what inspired you?
I attribute it to the sort of social justice roots of the university that I went to. It's called Brandeis University, and really just sort of progressive-minded students are attracted to that school, and so just fell in really quickly with causes that I cared about and didn't really know how to articulate until I sort of found the right people and the right professors and the right community to do that. So that was really wonderful. And then I graduated and, had to get a paying job. And I think like many young people who graduate college, I took the first job that was offered to me. It was in corporate finance for a large healthcare system. And, in many ways, it was a wonderful first job. I learned a lot. My Excel skills, I credit to that time. Made some great friends, met my husband, actually, in that job.
That's a great job to sum up.
Right, yeah. So it was worth it for that alone. And ultimately, it just wasn't a fit. I was not energized sort of by the day-to-day work. I didn't feel like it was a good use of my skills. It wasn't really igniting my passion. But it was sort of a golden handcuffs situation, which I think many of us are familiar with, right? You get paid pretty well. And so you think, well, maybe I should stay. Maybe this just is what work is, and I should just suck it up. But after 4 years, I decided I wasn't ready to suck it up. If you wake up and enough days when your alarm clock goes off and you are praying for a snow day and it's the summer, then I think that's a good indication that maybe it's time to find that next thing. And so my next thing was business school at Duke, which is something that we have in common. And so moved down to North Carolina for what I thought would just be 2 years, like just quick down, quick back up to New York, and then stayed and launched my second career in the social impact space, which you spoke about earlier. And that was sort of the re-emersion of my activist roots coming into play, but sort of marrying the causes I cared about, but looking at them through a business lens.
I'm curious about, for many people who are not sure, or not very clear about what social impact really is, what social entrepreneurship is, can you use a few words to describe that? And also, what does that mean to you? Why is always kind of in your heart?
Yeah, so I've heard the phrase social entrepreneurship is entrepreneurship. But the idea is that we're solving societal problems through this work. And so that could have to do with any range of issues, right? It's not issue specific. So it's anything that serves people and or planet or both for the betterment of humanity, society, and the earth. How would you describe it? I'm curious.
I think it's making the world a better place. I think it's, channel your passion into the project, into a cause that truly make your heart ache. And also helping supporting the community for the betterment holistically. And I'm curious, Julia, since you are, in that work for so many years to come, what does that mean to you personally? Why is that so important for you?
I think the status quo worries me. I don't think that we've ever experienced social progress by saying this is the way things have always been done. I'm really interested in people who push the boundaries and envelopes of what's normal and expected. And we have a long way to go in terms of progress in so many categories, and we need people doing this work.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Amazing. So now you are at Duke. So tell us, how's that 2-year MBA experience?
Yeah. So I think I like to talk about business school because I hadn't heard business school talked about in the way that I experienced business school. And so now I like to just kind of get it all out there and be honest for anyone who's thinking about business school, or for people who have been to business school and had experiences similar to mine. I thought business school was hard. And that feels
so hard.
Yeah, it was really hard. And that feels, for some reason, like a controversial point of view. I spoke to so many people who were just like, it was a 2-year vacation.
No.
Every night we did spring break, and sure, there were parts of it that were fun, but I worked really hard in business school and I struggled. And I think particularly after you've been in the workforce for a number of years, to go back and put your student hat on and to kind of care about grades again is just a difficult shift.
100%. I totally feel you. And I feel like it's hard to describe to people, because when you tell people, well, in business school, you are so busy. And people are like, yeah, me too. I have a job. I have brunch. I got a party tonight. Like, I'm busy too. But like, it's hard to describe to people. Yes, I was busy then. But when in business school, it's like busy times 10. Like, I can't imagine how does it all fit in, the recruiting, the party, the school, the exams, the SIP circle, like all and above just happening. And the typical day I'm picturing, I'm wearing a hoodie with my backpack and my high heel in my backpack. So I have to change to the bathroom very quickly to my SIP circle and be pretty. And yeah, tell me about yourself. Like in that, oh my God.
Yes, I think you just summarized it perfectly. Yeah, you feel like a crazy person. Yeah, and I see a question from Jorge Reyes, so I'm just going to answer that in our chat. He says, how did you realize I had it and decided to move on to your next project? So what was that moment where I was like, I'm done, I'm moving on? So Jorge, I think it's about paying attention to the energy in your body about work. How energized are you on a daily basis by the work that you're doing? How excited do you get about the work? And this is not to say that every day you're going to wake up and feel caffeinated by your task and just feel like naturally excited every day of your life. I don't think that that's sort of reasonable, although I think there are people who have that. But sort of think about holistically in a week, how many great days did you have? How many bad days did you have? Is that ratio comfortable for you? Maybe having 4 meh days and 1 great day feels satisfactory to you. Most of my clients and most people I know would say that's not the life I want to live. The kind of most finite resource we have is time. And I want to spend my time doing something that feeds my soul. And so I think to answer your question, I talked to a lot of people. I saw a therapist. I had a coach. So I had a lot of people who were sort of mirroring back to me what my experiences were. So I couldn't ignore them, right? I shut off autopilot. And autopilot is kind of the most dangerous brain function we can have when it comes to pursuing career paths that really will bring us joy.
That's beautiful.
So I hope that answers your question.
Yes. And I love that, Julia. So back to the moment in business school, the 2 years was so hard. Then how do you kind of move forward from there?
Yeah, it was hard. And I think one thing in particular that was hard is being thrown into this group of really just brilliant, like 400 really brilliant, really diverse people, and having like making friends. And I'm someone who, like, it takes me some time to make friends. I take my one-on-one friendships really, really seriously. I don't throw myself into just a group of people for the sake of being in a group of people, right? I'm like really intentional about my friendships. And so I had a couple really good friends first year, but I didn't sort of feel like I found my people yet. That came second year. And so I tell anyone who's going into business school, if you don't have good friends first year, it's okay. You're not doing anything wrong. And so second year, I built on some of the friendships that I had in first year that were wonderful, but I also found my social impact community. So I found others who saw the world the way I did, that we were in business school sort of to pursue this intersection of impact and business, profit and purpose. And that we wanted to use business as a lens to make the world better. And some of those people did end up going into banking or consulting, but they were really intentional about that being a step on the path to something else, right? To leverage that work to get experience and pay loans or sort of whatever. And then their journey was going to take them elsewhere. But it was really wonderful to be around people who saw the world the same way that I did.
Beautiful. And so do you, right? You, after business school, you took a path in the management consultant, right? Tell us a bit about the journey.
So I'll make just sort of one like tweak to that. It was social impact consulting.
Yes, yes, and yes.
Yes. So decidedly different from management consulting. So
tell us, what's the difference?
Yeah. So in management consulting, you think of kind of the big four consulting firms where it's a lifestyle, right? You're on the road Monday through Thursday. You work from home Friday. You get staffed on a project. You work long hours. You kind of can't predict what project you're going to be on. It's in a range of industries. And you sort of give your life to these companies for a certain number of time. I mean, that's really what it is. And also we should say when the preparation process for those interviews is really rigorous, right? We know we've had a lot of classmates go through the casing process, and that just felt like people were giving their lives to casing, right? It's like the specific way of solving problems during an interview, which to me feels like public math, and that's just not something I want to touch with a 10-foot pole. Yeah. So I was in social impact consulting, and so was heading up the North Carolina kind of branch of a New York-based social impact consulting firm. And so my clients were nonprofits and social impact focused organizations. And so while the projects had, they were business-y in nature, right? We were trying to figure out earned income revenue streams. We were thinking about metrics and measurement, right? It was all sort of the quantitative lens, but the issues we were solving were all social impact related problems.
And does that bring the joy to your heart?
It should have, right? Because I was very intentional about pursuing that path after business school. I was like, I'm gonna do the impressive thing, the consulting thing, and big check, and I'm going to do the good person thing, right? It's going to be in social impact, so check. And so I I should have just felt like that was food for my soul, and I was just completely satisfied and happy and good. And I didn't. And that's a tough moment, right? When you do this radical shift, when you spend a ton of money on graduate school, move your boyfriend, now husband, to a different state, take a job, leave your family in New York, right? And then say, ooh, just kidding.
So let's talk about that moment, right? What you just said is not a light decision or realization, right? So you were in the consulting, you wear this, fancy suit, you were talking to a client, you manage your team. What moment, you realize this is not for you? And also answer that question, kind of circle it back. Like, how do you start seeing, God damn it. All the should, this is not me.
Yeah. So it's hard. And I think that it was a culmination of moments in time. And I can point to one specific day though. And not everyone can, right? For a lot of us, it's just sort of like the culmination and the snowball effect of the toll that being in the wrong job can take on us emotionally and physically. But I did have one day at work where I was managing a team of 10 consultants, and I had my kind of check-in meetings stacked throughout the day. It was a Friday. We were talking about their projects, but, you know, like any good manager, I was talking about personal and professional development and goals and kind of all of that stuff. And I just was radically aware of this shift in my energy, the energy in my body, when the conversations shifted from personal and professional development to, you know, pulling up their Excel sheets and talking about, you know, the content of their consulting projects. I was like a balloon. I was fully inflated and excited when we were talking about their goals and who they wanted to be and what was wrong and the interpersonal dynamics and more the soft, I hate that word, but the soft stuff. And then if I was a balloon, I was just sort of deflating when the spreadsheets came up and we were like, okay, let's like talk about project management. Let's crunch the numbers. It just wasn't feeding my soul. And I had meeting after meeting after meeting that day where I had that same sensation in my body. And I came home and reflected on it to my husband. And I said, I think this is reflective of what I've been feeling for a long time, which is that I want to develop these people. I want to coach them, but I don't want to manage them. Mm-hmm. And that's a really critical difference. I don't want to manage people. I want to coach them. Can
you articulate that for people? What do you mean by that? What's the difference?
When you manage people, you're responsible for that project output. And they almost don't come first. I think for many good managers, they do come first. But it's a balance of output and making sure that the person functions on behalf of the company, and also, you know, throwing in some learning and development. If you're good. But I really just wanted to focus on learning and development, helping them develop skills, articulate goals, develop their confidence, articulate kind of their values and what energizes them, how to translate that into work, how to make a 5-year plan, what that looked like, talking about holistic success, right? Not just your job, but what else is in your life that energizes you. Those were the conversations I wanted to be having.
Why those conversations just more closer to your heart? Why?
You know, it's sort of like, why does a mountain climber love mountain climbing? Like, why does a novelist love to write? This is the thing that feeds me, that brings me authentic joy. This is the thing that makes my heart do this.
Oh. So you just want to connect to people and supporting them in their journey, and that brings you so much energy and inspiration.
That's right. And I think people who seek coaching are a self-selective group of people who want change and who want to be better and who want to be happier. And I'm inspired by people who want to be better, get better, do better, feel more aligned, feel more in sync. I'm inspired by people who have that pursuit.
Beautiful. Okay, so take us back to that Friday. You had that inspiration. It was like, God damn, this is what I actually wanted to do. But I'm in this fancy job. I get paid so well. And I manage 10 people. And now what, right? I mean, that is a hard truth to take and then actually have courage to pivot, right? Tell us that, share with that journey.
Yeah. So the thing about social impact consulting that is sort of, I feel important to say, is that the pay isn't good. And particularly for this company, the pay was not good. So this was not a golden handcuff situation. This was not management consulting level salary. Oh my gosh, I'm going to have to kiss my lifestyle goodbye. I wasn't getting paid that much. So that part of it was actually not that bad.
But relatively still above a lot of people. So relatively still a very comfortable situation, put it that way, right?
So yeah, I would say so. And I quit my job without having a plan B, which
cold feet on Monday.
I quit. Yeah, I quit. It was the next week.
Was that a tough decision for you to come to it?
No. Once I made the decision, I was in. I was all in. I was done.
Was that a scary moment? Like, I think that's a big decision, or not just a job, but now I think you are pivoting your entire identity, your
Yeah.
career, and how you see life looking forward. So it's a big decision.
Yeah.
You know, you mentioned make it sounds like only take a week, right? How does that? What was that a scary process? How do you able to really push through all those questions, the doubt, the fear that oftentimes serve up and still pushing it forward and follow your heart?
Yeah, it was terrifying. And I think particularly in the US, we tie our identities so intimately to our work. And so I had to untangle that pretty seriously. And I think that's a journey for all of us, right? Untangling our worth from our job, which is something we're kind of taught. You are your job from really early on. That's in business school, definitely still the rhetoric. Having to say, what would it be like if I wasn't my job? And what would it be like if I led with something that was going to bring me joy and happiness, and sort of trusted that if I am aligned in the right thing, then people will pay me money to do that thing. That takes a lot of trust. It's terrifying. And once I made the decision, I felt just complete relief. It didn't mean I wasn't terrified, but I felt an enormous amount of relief. And that was sort of the beginning of the breaking up with should process for my own life, is how can I end my relationship with this word through all of these jobs that haven't brought me joy, and all of these sort of professional experiences where I've learned a lot, but authentic joy hasn't really been a part of the puzzle. And I had a very supportive partner. That's something that I have to mention, because I think privilege is something that needs to be discussed when we talk about entrepreneurship, right? Like the idea that you can forego an income for a year or however long it's going to take you to generate revenue. The idea that I was well-resourced enough to know how to start a business, right? All of those factors are in play. And so, yes, I had a supportive husband who had an income, who wanted me to be happy. And so that played a huge role too.
So beautiful. So the week later, you quit your job. Now what? You have nothing. You don't really started anything yet. Like, how do you take from that moment to now?
Yes. So I did some part-time consulting, actually at Duke for CASE, the Center for Advancement of Social Entrepreneurship, which are my people. I love them so much. They were so good to me. And so it was important for me to have a part-time consulting gig to make some money while I was kind of ideating and thinking. I wasn't comfortable just like fully quitting. Part-time consulting gigs are really helpful when you're in a transition. So that's just a word of advice. It helps because when you have the whole week ahead of you to think about how much you don't know and how uncertain your life is, that can be really emotionally difficult. And so having a part-time gig was really helpful. But I basically took a month and just wrote, I journaled, I talked to people, I thought, I researched, I played with the word coach, right? I think that word was weird to me because I come from a family that values degrees. And like my dad's a physician and my mom's a psychotherapist, and both of those come with advanced degrees. We're qualified to be doing work in a one-on-one capacity. Coaching is a really unregulated industry, as we know. And so, what did that mean that I was going into that? Was I qualified? And so grappling with a lot of these questions, and then ultimately just decided to pull the trigger.
Wait, so before that whole month, are you going in that month knowing you want to become a coach? Or is through that journaling process, self-reflection, and that coach, that word just stood out for you? Like, which path were you taking? Also, advice for folks who are maybe in the same process of finding what is his or her thing. What kind of process would you recommend?
So I had no idea that this was going to be coaching, to be honest. I had no idea. I mean, I was like, is it freelance consulting? Is it dog walking? Like, what is it? Which, by the way, I did dog walk in graduate school, and it was great. Another job I've had. But I think I wrote a lot, and I just read what I wrote, and I talked about it a lot. The way I was describing the type of work I wanted to do, it was impossible to get away from the fact that it was coaching. And I toyed with using other words, right? Guide. I think that's part of why that word's in my business. Teacher. But it just came back to coaching. And I tested the hypothesis. I took on clients for free and just played around with what my sort of value proposition was, what I was offering, the tools and services, and the type of coach that I was, until it sort of formed itself. And then people started paying me, and a lot happened. But now I run a successful coaching practice.
Amazing. So basically, it's that 1 month you figured out that thing, and the magic just happened. So walk me through the entrepreneur journey. Like, is it just as easy as that sounds?
It is not. And any entrepreneur who tells you that there aren't days where they want to just completely throw their hands in the air and quit is lying. There have been those days. And I think for someone like me, who I really like instant gratification, being an entrepreneur is hard, because this analogy has been with me since day one. The seeds don't grow the day that you plant them. And so what that means is you're putting in place all of these different strategies. You're planting, you're burying, you're watering, you're hoping for sunlight, right? And you can't really predict when that little sprout is going to come up. All you can control is how many seeds you plant. And so that metaphor was just with me kind of the first year of my business, in terms of building relationships with corporations, with people, talking about what I do, speaking on panels, doing public speaking, right? Speaking for free when the chance arose, just to get in front of more people, right? And sort of just taking opportunities and taking them. And then, you slowly see 3 months later, 6 months later, a client comes out of that, or a new organization reaches out to you to speak, right? And so the more seeds you plant, the more success you have. And that takes patience and it takes time.
What is the hardest thing that you felt you have overcome throughout the whole entrepreneur journey?
I only get one. There's so many.
Well, name a few.
So I think isolation is one of them. It's when you're on your own, particularly as a solopreneur, figuring out how to structure your time and build in socialization when you don't have coworkers, other than my dog, who's right here. You can't see her. So I think social isolation was definitely a piece. So figuring out how to plug myself into communities of people who could act as my colleagues, even if they weren't. And so I through a lot of work, found some amazing communities of people who I do feel like are colleagues at this point. Another one, and perhaps the hardest one for me, is simply patience. Year one, your cash flow isn't going to be what you want it to be. It's an investment. You're making an investment in yourself. And so, if I had to go back and give myself a word of advice, it would just be patience. It would just be patience. Because I think, that day when you plant 1 million seeds and none of them flower, you're like, all right, this is it. But no, it takes time.
Amazing. So for folks who may be also starting their own entrepreneur journey today or tomorrow, so you think patience is the word you will give to them?
Patience, yeah. Patience.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So is, you've been down this journey for a year or two now, right? Is this everything you wanted it? The moment that you quit your job, the moment you decide this is not for me, when you end that consulting gig and you want to pivot, right? Is today what you want? Fresh back to that moment.
I so appreciate this question. The reason I appreciate it is because I think, and this is the reason my book is titled what it's titled, Breaking Up with Should, in the tense that it is in, right? Not broken up with should, not I've already done it, it's done, but continuously breaking up with should, continuously breaking up with societal expectations of success, or what I've been sort of raised to think success is. And I think what we don't do as entrepreneurs enough is pause and celebrate the successes. And so I appreciate that question, because I'm in this moment sort of pausing and saying, yeah, 2 years ago when I set out with this vision, I never would have thought that my business would be 100% referral based, that I would command the fees that I charge, that I would write for Forbes, that I was named a Business Insider, Coach of the Year of 2020. That I'm being asked to speak, right? Like all of these things that you're like, this will probably never happen, but if I had to sort of daydream, and that's what's happened. And I'm appreciating this moment of just sort of recognizing that and sitting with it. And you know what that speaks to, though? when you're in work that really aligns with your energy, it doesn't feel as much like work. Like it didn't feel like I was pulling teeth to get all of this stuff done. It was just sort of a natural extension of my energy, right? Like the Forbes thing, I had things to say and I did a lot of writing and I had a lot of opinions. And it turned out that those opinions resonated with people. And through all of the connections I built, through all of these kind of informal communities that I referred to earlier, right? I was able to connect with and make a friend who wrote for Forbes and made the introduction, right? And so it just all happened much more naturally than I think I would have thought.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That is so beautiful. I love that. Sounds like you just put yourself in the right spot and all the right magic just happened as dreaming as it was, but you're the one accomplished all of those in just short of 2 years. That's incredible.
Thank you. Sorry, my hair. I hate this about Zoom. How I always just look at my hair. This one piece of hair is so bothering me. Okay, thank you. Better.
You look beautiful.
Anyone with curly hair watching, you get me. You get me. It's not.
Oh my God, you are just so adorable. Julia, I love that. And I'm curious, 2 years in, right, you accomplished so much things, and it sounds like exactly what you anticipate the day you put your resignation letter. And I'm thinking, reflect back a decade, right, since the moment you start this, work journey, right, this the real world. Who do you have become? Because at the end of the day, it's not about the things that we have. It's not about the house we bought. It's not our dog that we have. It's about really, at the end of the day, who you have become. I'm curious about who have you transformed through this whole experience, right? Whether it's in finance, investing, consulting, MBAs, and now in the coach, this capacity. Who have you become?
Yeah, that was so well said. I aspire to be, and thank you, Jorge, for this really great comment. Thank you for being here. I aspire to be curious and kind. I think those two words are really powerful. I think the pursuit of curiosity serves us so well in our lifetimes. It's both getting curious with ourselves and getting curious with others. Genuine curiosity. I think curiosity can help build bridges between people. And I think kindness, again, both to ourselves and to others.
Isn't it so hard? Be kind to ourselves? Because at the end of the day, as a high achiever yourself, you probably know we are hardest to ourselves than anything else. So I think having that patience, having that kindness to yourself, and truly listen to your own heart, accepting who we are, breaking that should when those moments come about, and follow your heart, taking all the courage and truly live life with passion. That is not an easy journey at all.
It's really not. It's really not. And I do believe, like you said, Wen, that it starts with how we talk to ourselves and the compassion that we're exercising towards ourselves. What does that voice sound like? That voice that you talk to yourself with? How can you get in touch with that voice?
Do you have any word of advice for folks who maybe today, in the stage of still figured out who he or she is, maybe still figured out, is it a should or is that an I am, right? How do you advise?
Yeah. So anyone who's listening, I would love for you to pre-order my book, which is called Breaking Up with Should. It's on my website. I can type in the link if that's helpful.
I'm going to put a link here. Yeah, in the below. No problem.
And so in my book, I do talk about how to identify what I call maladaptive shoulds versus good shoulds, right? Not all shoulds are bad. So what's a maladaptive should and what's a good should? And so how to identify those? And so the first step I would just advise people on, again, combating autopilot is when we just go and don't think or reflect. Develop a journaling practice. And that doesn't have to be scary. No one has to see it. It could be a sentence a day. It could be on your phone. It could be written. Make some time to reflect on what your experiences are. Because when you see that facing you, staring at you, it's really hard to ignore. And commit to the process of writing, because that's how I believe our brains kind of process what's happening to us. And so if you need a small step to start somewhere, start writing.
And how do you listen to that should?
Think about the energy in your body. And so when you're doing a task, what feelings do you associate with that task? Is it dread? Does your heart sink? Are you trying to get it over with as quickly as possible? Do you feel sad? Do you feel deflated? Do you feel demotivated? Do you feel numb? Do you feel neutral? Do you feel despondent? Do you feel complacent? Or do you feel energized? Do you feel excited? Do you feel curious? How do you feel about tasks? Ask yourself those questions and write and reflect. Your body and your gut is going to be the best indication of whether something is a should versus whether something is actually a passion. And so I like to say your gut is your smartest organ. Your gut is the one that's telling you what to do. Just get in tune with it.
I love that. So ladies and gentlemen, if now you're also in the process, just get curious, pick out your pen, pick out your phone, start writing, journaling, and really listen to the voice. Is that a exciting shirt, or is that, God damn it, I'm dragging my feet kind of shirt? And making a choice and truly trust yourself, follow your heart, and follow your own path.
Yep.
I am curious, Julia, throughout the whole journey, right? If you look back the past decade or so, think about the person you are becoming today, the people who are so kind and so curious to yourself and the world. Would you change anything in the journey? If you have that magic wand.
Not for a second. I wouldn't change a single thing about my journey. Every bad job I had, every bad verbally abusive boss I had led me to where I am right now. Every bad experience I had at work is a Forbes article, quite literally, right? Like everything. And I'm not sort of spiritual in the way that I believe everything happens for a reason. I don't, but I do believe that I am in the midst of the perfectly written novel of my life right now. And that each chapter that came before informed the chapters that exist now. And that are making me who I am, which I'm very grateful to be that person.
Beautiful. So let's talk about the chapter. What is the next chapter for you? And what is the beautiful chapter, like a perfect chapter in your mind?
Survive the pandemic, survive the results of this election. I think this isn't talked about a lot for entrepreneurs and people who start businesses and in business school, but I want a family. I want children. And I want to raise my children. So I want to be there for them. And so many things that are wonderful about this career is that I can sort of scale up and scale back when I wish, and spend time with my family and my friends. That's sort of my next chapter, I think, is just getting my business to a place where it's humming. Get really intentional about outsourcing. I think that's something that entrepreneurs probably don't do fast enough because we feel like we have to do everything ourselves, right? So what is a task that it's not essential that you do, that you can pay someone else to do, versus what is essential that you do, right? For me, it's coaching and writing. So I need to do those things, but having someone else do all the other things. So that's kind of the next chapter for me. And then really continuing to focus on holistic well-being. I've got to practice what I preach to my clients, right? So how am I focusing on physical fitness and nutrition and activities that bring me joy, and taking naps when I need to nap, and resting, and time with my loved ones, right? And so that just continues to be a really strong focus for me.
Beautiful. I love that Julia has such a holistic approach. And I love you mentioned, right? Oftentimes in MBA, in business school, we don't really talk about the fulfillment holistically, whether it's raising a family, go for a hike, go take a yoga, take a nap when you feel like it. Those are all sounds a little bit trivial, but yet so important as big piece of puzzle in the holistic success, or whatever you want to call it, for your life, right? I love that you pointed out. And Julia, I do want to spend some minutes to talk about, so for people who are curious about you and how to find you and how to collaborate with you. So can you share with a little bit about your business and what kind of support you are providing, and how can folks collaborate with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a coach, and I call myself a career confidence coach. So I don't work as much with folks in career transition. I work with folks who are looking to get more intentional about leadership and confidence and defining sort of a direction. And so that's the type of coaching I do. I work with individuals, and I also work with corporations. I work with organizations. And so if you work for an organization who's looking for coaches, reach out to me. I do lots of corporate coaching. I also do workshops and public speaking. And so topics that I love to talk about are confidence and imposter syndrome and how to kind of overcome those things, particularly in a work setting. Work-life balance and what that means. I talk about this idea of breaking up with should. So lots of different, many people call them soft skills topics. I think they're essential skills. Those are a couple of things that I speak about and think about. And of course I write. And so if you have any topics that you think warrant being written about, of course, always happy to hear what you have to say.
Amazing. And Julia, you comment about imposter syndrome. I wanted to take a second to talk about that. And by the way, thank you so much, George, for that beautiful comments.
Thank you, Jorge. Yeah, that's really wonderful. Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about the imposter syndrome. And a lot of us who are high achievers all have them. So first of all, what is imposter syndrome? And if you want, anybody who are high achievers having that feeling, how would you advise to overcome that?
Yeah, so this is an hour-long presentation, but let me condense it into 30 seconds here. So imposter syndrome is a feeling of fraudulence among people who are quite successful. So you are generally pretty smart, pretty high achieving, but yet you have this pervasive feeling like you're faking it and you're going to be found out. That's called imposter syndrome. It was originally studied in the 1970s by two scientists who wrote a paper on it. And it was originally studied in women because these two scientists thought that this was a phenomenon that mostly affected high-achieving women. We actually now know that it affects women and men equally, but that was the original research and data.
I want to do one small.
Yeah, please.
In my mind. When I'm in business school, taking the DMON class, do you remember the model? I was like, oh my God, I'm blowing my mind. And I went to the professor's office one day. I forgot what's his name, but he's so handsome. Like, you will remember him. He's just, oh my God. Like, I was just sitting in the first row and just look at him, just fold up like, oh my God, you're so handsome and so smart. And I have no idea what I'm doing. So I go to the office hour and tell him, oh my God, professor, you are so great, but I have no idea how to do this homework. What is like optimization, like damn airplanes. I have zero idea. And he was like, have you heard of imposter syndrome? And such a beautiful accent, right? And I was just like, look at him, all the charm. I was like, I love you, professor. I have zero idea. So he sent me this word, like spelled out. So I go home and Google that. That's the first time I ever heard of that damn word. And it's so beautiful. And as you explain that, the moment of me sitting in the office hour with my professor who is so charming and so handsome, and that moment just reflect back to my memory. But continue.
I love you so much. I just need to say that. And like, also, you are very beautiful and very smart. So it's just funny how we discount ourselves when we feel like we're not worthy of the room that we're in or the intellect of other people. What we're discounting is a lot of other people are feeling that same way.
You know what? That's the hardest thing I feel like I personally have to overcome. Like when you walk in, sit with a 400 brilliant do MBA, you're sitting there like, God damn it, they are so smart. It took me an entire 1 year to realize I am one of them. So do I.
Yeah.
But thank you for acknowledging that. That's just,
yeah, you are one of them. And believe me, I too still struggle with those feelings. The first day of financial accounting sticks out in particular.
For me, it's a goddamn demon. The 8 hours exam, do you remember? If you take that class, I was like,
I didn't take DMONs for that reason.
Oh,
I think I maxed out all my ManCom classes. Literal maximum number allowed.
Anyhow, so we talk about imposter syndrome, and then you were about to tell us how do you overcome that? If you do find yourself one of those beautiful people, successful, but yet moment to come, realize, damn, am I fake? Am I fraud? Is someone going to report me? How do you advise?
Yeah. So the first thing I will say that it's a practice, not a pill. I wish I could give you a little pill through the camera right now to cure your imposter syndrome. I can't. But the first and kind of most studied way to help combat it feels really counterintuitive because we carry these feelings with shame and with secrecy, right? We don't tell anyone that we're feeling this way. So actually one of the best ways to combat it is to talk about it, to do exactly what we're doing now, which is to say, oh, I feel kind of like I'm faking it. Kind of feel like I have no idea what I'm doing. How about you? That feels terrifying. That feels like a risk, but that actually helps us feel better because we connect with other people who are feeling the same way. It normalizes it. We realize we're not alone. And it decreases the shame and the secrecy that are associated with these feelings of I'm secretly faking it. I'm secretly a fraud. And I'm the only one who's a fraud, by the way. Right. And so talking about it is just the first biggest piece of advice I would give.
Okay, so first talk about it. What is second? I see there's second coming.
For the second one, you're going to have to pay me to do a workshop.
Wow. Okay. But is there any like a dense insight you can share? Just a short, quick blur?
So we talked about this already, but I would say start to get intentional about noticing the voice that you use to talk to yourself.
So be kind to yourself.
It's about insight first, right? So insight means understanding more about yourself. So instead of being on autopilot with how you talk to yourself, start to notice and in a non-judgmental way how you're talking to yourself, right? So don't judge how you're talking to yourself, but just simply notice it.
Beautiful. So guys, if you also experience imposter syndrome, really, there are 2 simple steps. Number 1, talk about it. Connect with people, share your experience. So there's no shame anymore. You are not in the club, in the secret anymore. That's 1. Secondly, be aware. Use a kind language to yourself and truly listen to what you said to yourself and truly make sure you use the right language. You are not a flaw. You are beautiful. You are successful the way you are. So there's no secret. You are perfect. To sum up, you are not the imposter syndrome. I hope I said the workshop correctly.
Yeah, and I would say like nobody is perfect. And as long as you are committed to growth and that it's okay to not know all the answers, because none of us know all the answers. Even Albert Einstein did not have all the answers. Let's all just normalize gaps in our knowledge collectively because no one can possibly know everything. And so the pursuit, again, of curiosity and questions are beautiful.
Amazing. I love that, Julia. I love that you share such a beautiful journey with us. I love that you are so brave, so bold, and really listen to your own heart and just follow it through, even though it sounds so scary, taking the leap when the moment that doesn't seem very obvious or clear to you, but you're taking the path anyway. And today, seeing the beautiful, beautiful future you are creating for yourself and all the people around you, an incredible community you are impacting, which is so beautiful. Is there anything else you want to share with the audience that I have not asked today, Julia?
No, I just want to thank you for creating the space and providing the forum for this conversation. It's been such a pleasure, and I'm so excited for our continued friendship.
Yes. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in today. Hope you have a magical Tuesday, and thank you so much, Julia. You are so wonderful.
Thank you, Wen. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.